of seven.
Okay, it's best of seven series for
of a best of seven series.
Welcome to the Best of Seven podcast.
Welcome to season number 2, episode number 20 of the Best of 7 podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Plant from SENS. In this episode, we are so very happy to have CFL insider from TSN, David William Naylor, on the show for an interview. We as well broke down all of the first round matchups of this year's 2020 Stanley Cup Playoffs, and as well dove into the 2020 NBA first round playoffs. Those series are done, but we did dive into that as well. Next episode, we're going to have a full preview of the second round of the 2020 Stanley Cup Playoffs, and that preview or segment will be uploaded tomorrow on the SENS YouTube channel. So if you want to get a little bit of a sneak peek on next week's episode, check out SENS tomorrow. We'll upload that series preview for round number 2 tomorrow. As well, at the end of this video, I'm going to have a little rant about Fernando Tatis Jr. and why his grand slam home run on a 3-0 count was not a big deal, and the MLB should relax with their unwritten rules. So let's get into this great episode. All right, we are joined here with TSN CFL insider David William Naylor. Thank you so much, David, for joining the show. How are you doing today?
Not too badly. Enjoying a nice day.
Before we even got into the interview, we were talking about all those cool banners and everything behind you. You told me it's from your childhood. I'm looking at it all. Calgary Stampeders one, Blue Jays one. How cool. I love the man cave behind you, man.
Well, actually, I had all these pennants like in my basement, and like not only are they old, but some of them are teams that don't exist anymore. Like
really?
The California Angels,
Wow.
who are, of course, no longer the California Angels, the Los Angeles Raiders, the Houston Oilers, the Montreal Expos. It's actually incredible. Like, I got 4 pennants in a row of teams that have either changed their name or moved. So,
now,
yeah, it's at least I found something to do with them.
As a CFL insider, I hope you have a Baltimore Stallions banner somewhere. CFL.
I had a Stallions T-shirt for the longest. I had a couple. I had a Tracy Ham T-shirt and a Baltimore Stallions T-shirt. But I don't know where those have gone. I got a few other remnants from the Las Vegas Posse and Memphis Mad Dogs. A few of those things kicking around.
The Las Vegas Posse. Thank you for bringing that up, because wasn't it the Las Vegas Posse where they had that infamous Canadian national anthem? Blue?
I was there. Yeah, it was about July of 1994. It was Vegas's first home game, Saskatchewan at Las Vegas, and Dennis K.C. Parks sang "O Canada" to the tune of "O Christmas Tree." I remember reaching for my tape recorder in the middle of the anthem, like as he got like 3 bars in, and like, oh my God, where's my tape recorder? I got to get this. So, yeah.
Well, producer Laddie, make sure to put that on the screen for this interview, because that is probably one of the most infamous moments in CFL history, and it's pretty remarkable that you were there, and I'm glad you brought out Las Vegas, because I was sort of confused where it was. I thought it
was Vegas. Here's a trivia question. Who sang the Star Spangled Banner that night?
No clue. I wasn't alive.
Dionne Warwick.
Oof. Well,
a big star for the Star Spangled Banner, and she sang it correctly. There you go.
Yeah, well, I think it just shows, in Canada we know both anthems, in America maybe
right.
He didn't, but I think the CFL expansion in America, I'll just touch up on this for a bit. I thought it wasn't bad. Like they had some success. Now with the XFL and the NFL, they'll have no chance anymore. But like at the time, I think they pulled out too early. I think they could have built something.
I wouldn't so much say they pulled out too early, because I think the plan was wrong. It might have been the right idea.
It was executed wrongly.
Right. Like if I plan a restaurant and I do everything wrong, it doesn't mean that a restaurant was a bad idea. It means I didn't execute it properly.
That's fair.
And I would say, now, in defense of them, the league was running on fumes, right? And they didn't have time on their side, but there were all kinds of strategic mistakes. That might be putting it nicely in the era. Yes.
Well, speaking of mistakes and wrong strategies, I want to talk to you about the future of the CFL and the plan moving forward. Is there a plan in place to get play back as soon as possible? Because we're missing a season of the CFL, and that's, as a Canadian, as you can see, I'm wearing a Red Blacks fan. As a native in Ottawa, I'm a huge Red Blacks fan, and we've had a lot of success in our short tenure in the CFL. But I'm wondering, the future of the CFL, what's the plan moving forward? What should we expect in 2021?
Well, there isn't a plan right now, but the good news is they've got, for a change, like a time on their side, unlike what they've had over the last little while. But I think there are some ideas, right? I think the economics of the league are going to be scaled back. Like, you're going to see smaller coaching staffs, you're going to see salary reductions, you're going to see all kinds of things like that. I think you're going to see further. I mean, they're going to have to make a choice before next year. And it's impossible to predict this stuff now. This is why you can't have a plan on the 19th of August for next season. But are they going to be in a hub, a bubble, or are they going to be playing in their individual stadiums with, traveling across? That would be a fundamental question. And really, in terms of, they're going to have to learn from what happens with the NFL and whatever degree college football is able to play in the U.S. this year. I mean, there's technological advancements coming, and all these kind of things are great plans. But if the league can't put 15 to 20,000 people in stadiums next year, I'm not sure playing is any more viable than it was this year. I mean, you're talking about 30 to 45% of team revenues coming from game day. And when you choke that off, if you don't have something to replace it, it's really hard to run a league. So, they can make the best of plans, but this is really going to come down to the state of the virus, and I guess more specifically, the state of the government regulations around the virus. As long as we're prevented from having large gatherings of people in the thousands, it's going to be really tough to operate the Canadian Football League.
Well, I think what you just said is very similar to what is going on in the CHL, where they can't really work with anything without fans in the stands. They have the only difference between the CFL and CHL on a financial implications would be the CFL has a cap hit, and they have a huge national deal for every single
television
game.
They have a significant television contract. Yeah, exactly.
CHL has Sportsnet for weekly games, like 1 or 2 games, but CFL gets every single game covered. So that's the difference.
No, I mean, there's a television deal worth $45 million. So it's a professional sports market television.
It's a good penny.
Yes,
it's a good penny. So I think that's why this year they were considering the bubble, because they still would have got the advertisement dollars, they still would have got the TV revenues, and it would have helped them alleviate stress moving forward on a financial scale. Now, financially, I want to talk about the Canadian government rejecting the $30 million loan request that the CFL sent to the Canadian government. What were the parameters around that deal or loan deal, and why was it rejected?
Well, the $30 million was $20 million of it was going to be directed towards paying players, which I think the league thought was falling in line with the government's priority, which is to put people back to work. $8 million of it would have been directed towards the hub in Winnipeg, to accommodate the players, and about $2 million of it would have been for a contingency fund. In terms of why it was rejected, I think there's a long history in this country of governments, especially federal governments, being resistant to getting involved with professional sports. I mean, you remember 15 years ago when the National Hockey League was looking for subsidization from the federal government when the dollar was, at 63 cents or something, and they came out with a policy to do that, and 48 hours later they pulled it back because the backlash was, and that's hockey in Canada.
Yeah.
Like, we always say hockey, nothing matters more to Canadians than hockey. Well, they didn't even want their tax dollars going to that, right? Yeah. And you look at even what happened with the Blue Jays, right, where the city of Toronto and the province of Ontario approved their plan to have teams coming and going across the border. The federal government came in and said, nope. And they got cheered for it. I mean, it was a political victory for them. And then when the Marlins had their outbreak, like a week later, everybody said, wow, the feds got this right. So politically, it's never made a lot of sense for federal governments to get involved with professional sports to any degree of propping them up. They are, by definition, they are a luxury in our society. Yes. I mean, as much as people will make economic arguments about the CFL, it's not a significant economic player in the league. It matters to individuals, like if you work for a team or you're a player, or even you can't really make a mass, an argument about the economics of the country, benefiting from the Canadian Football League. So, you can make an argument, but it would be flawed. So, I think that's a big part of why ultimately, I think we knew this was going to be political. And
everything is.
Yeah, and look, if the federal government does make good on its commitment to be involved with the league on a longer term basis, I think that's more important than playing a shortened 2020 season. But we'll see if they fulfill on that. I know that the sentiment in the league is kind of like, okay, we get that you told us no. We just wish you could have told us no before the 14th of August, because that
for sure
put a lot of people through a lot of waiting and stress and roller coaster of emotions.
Unnecessary, yeah. What I will say is, while I'm not going to talk about the spending this government has done over the last few years, and we've spent a lot, I do understand why, and I mean a lot. We've spent a lot of money, this government. But what I will say is, I understand when you have a bunch of private, these guys, they're not billionaires. Jerry Jones doesn't own a team in the CFL, right? These are millionaires, though. And the public, the middle class people like myself and you, just regular Joes. Yeah. We don't want to see the government giving these millionaires millions of dollars. It's just a bad look. So while I understand, I love the CFL. I want it to succeed. I understand why our tax dollars should be going to, especially during a pandemic. It's just a bad look. Regardless of, you look at the amount of money we've sent for other things, regardless of the politics of it, it's just a bad look. And right now for the government anyways, I don't think they need any more bad looks for them. So
yeah, and to your point, there's some things that happen with the federal government that have nothing to do with the CFL that may have adversely affected the CFL.
That's what I'm trying to allude to.
Yeah, and you got the finance minister change. You got some things that are completely beyond their control. And you're right. I mean, as much as the CFL is not a rich league, the private owners in this league, we're not talking about single-digit millionaires here, right? We're talking about people of considerable wealth. And that's why I think it was important for them to position their ask not to write checks to the owners, but that money that was specifically targeted to go to pay players and accommodate them to play this season. I think that was what the league thought would be able to get them past, the political hurdles, because they understood the sensitivity of giving a check to David Braley or Roger Greenberg or the people who own teams in this league.
Well, what I will say is, like you said, the government in Canada, I'm not going to get into the politics of it, but they're going through, the government right now is not exactly, it's in shambles, to be quite honest with you. It's in shambles. There's a lot going on, and if you don't know about it, I suggest reading about it. But let's get back onto the CFL, where the financial impact of the lost season, what is that going to look like for the CFL moving forward? Because we just discussed, it's not a rich league, it's not broke, but it is not exactly the NFL, it's not the MLB, it's not the NBA, it's not the NHL. They don't have an abundance of money. So moving forward, what's it going to look like financially for the CFL?
Well, the lost season is a huge factor. Although playing a shortened season would not have drastically improved the economics of the league, and I think and if things had gone off the rails, it might have hurt the economics of the league. So I think there was a lot of reaction this week that, oh my goodness, they can't even play a shortened season. What does this do to the league standing? Well, not very much, really. That's not what the horse has kind of left the barn on the issue of the league's economics. So. Yeah, you're talking about teams that have lost significant amounts of money. The publicly owned teams are going to be bled dry in their reserves by the end of the year. It's a very bleak economic picture. And then you get into the offseason, and normally the lifeblood of a CFL team is selling season tickets for the next year. But if the government regulations say you can't put people in stands, what is season ticket sales going to be like? So you've got kind of two different categories. I think the publicly owned teams will be helped out, presumably by their provincial governments.
Like Saskatchewan stuff, right?
Yeah, and I think by friends and partners in business in those communities. I mean, that's part of being community owned, is people rally to your support. And I think that's what the private owners, it's going to be more about, making sure they want to continue investing and paying people and maintaining their organizations with the uncertainty about whether they'll be able to play in 2021. And, I haven't spoken to any of them individually, but I do understand that being a CFL owner and being a CFL owner when you can't play games, are two different things. So I don't know that we should just assume that, everybody's got their hand up to play, to continue this in 2021. But we hope they do still have that commitment. But it's a very bleak economic picture. And it's just as it would be for any business that has its revenue streams, its primary revenue streams choked off.
Now, I'm wondering, because you're a CFL insider, I'm wondering, have you heard any rumblings about the owners in the league being upset about the loan being denied? Have you heard anything about owners being stressed about the future of the league itself? Have you really heard anything within the CFL about large concern about the future?
All of the above.
Okay.
Really. And I think the disappointment of the government, I'd say, was as much about the timing as the no. I think a May rejection would have given them clarity, but I think they feel like they were misled. They feel like the federal government gave them indications that this was doable and then told them it wasn't. Well, the same way kind of the players feel a little misled by the league, and there may be sort of some connection in all of those things. In terms of, concerns about the future, it's just when people don't know when your business model is going to resume. Look, I remember a couple of us at TSN had a bit of an informal pool at work. Like, when will the next time we'll see a sporting event with a full stadium? My guess was August 15th, right? Well, it ain't happening by August 15th because that's 4 days ago.
Yeah.
I didn't mention what year. So, I mean, that's another issue, right? That you've got that. So there's legitimate, concern and worry about the future of the league.
Yeah.
And I think there is a lot. You said there was, you mentioned 3 things there: the frustration with government, concern about the future. What was the other one?
Oh, man. That's why I wish I wrote things down.
That's all right. I think we covered most of it, but yeah, there's real worry about the future of the league and the direction, and just because we're just steered now into more uncertainty. And
well, I was mostly speaking about, is there a concern about the future of the league from owners itself, and are owners considering, oh no, do I need to sell? Oh no, do I need to cut ties? Do I need to cut.
I don't know that there are any owners that are wavering about their commitment to the league at this point. It would be hard to sell a CFL team right now, I would think. Like any business, like, we don't know when your revenue streams are. I think the big difference between this and every other challenge the CFL has been through in its history is that this one, the most important aspects of it, they don't control. Randy Ambrosie could be the greatest commissioner in the league. The players in the league can work together. You can get the best health and science protocols. But ultimately, until you can return to your traditional business model, you've got a massive challenge, and that they don't control. They've never been in a situation where the biggest variables are beyond their control, and that's the case here.
Well, now I can go on all day about my opinion on this government and the last few years, and of course with the CFL, which I love. I'm not going to go into a spin about the government because I have some words about it, but I want to talk now about the XFL, where The Rock just bought the XFL for $15 million, or is a part owner of the league itself. Now the CFL is in a year break. It's likely going to return next year, correct?
Well, we'll see.
Well, let's say coronavirus is gone.
I think there will be a Canadian Football League when coronavirus regulations.
Thank you.
Relax. That's what I have no doubt there will be a CFL. I just can't tell you when that will be.
Fair enough. That's what I wanted to get out of the interview.
Sure.
But the XFL is going to pose a huge threat to the CFL, in my opinion. They are offering players money right out of the gate from NCAA, and I think it's more attractive for these players to stay in America than move to Canada. It's more comfortable for them, and if I'm a professional player, I'd rather stay in my country than move to another one, right? Unless, of course, the salaries are completely off or different. But with The Rock, just the attractiveness around the XFL, can the XFL pose a huge threat to the CFL?
The history of alternative professional football in America is not very good. That's true. We've seen the USFL, which tried to compete for the NFL players with the NFL for players, right, and spent their brains out.
That was in the 90s or 80s,
under the leadership of Donald Trump, 30-some years ago.
Yeah.
You have the XFL. You've had the UFL.
Yeah.
You've had CFL expansion in the United States. You've had the Alliance of American Football, and you've had XFL too.
Yeah.
Every one of them used essentially the same business model, right? Paying players.
I'll say one thing, except the first XFL. That was way out of left field.
But the business model was the same. I mean, the marketing was different, but the business model was the same. Let's play football in the spring and pay guys nominal salaries. Guys that we think are just on, not that much worse than NFL players. Same business model, right? And get a TV contract. So, one of the things that amazed me when both the Alliance of American Football came along and the XFL is that they were using the same business model that had been proven failed before. And they both failed. Now, we'll never know whether the XFL 2 would have failed because, of course, they had COVID come in. But if you look at their television ratings, they were lower every single week, which means that what was driving interest initially was curiosity. And the more people were exposed to the product, the less interested they became. At some point, your product has to be able to engage people and become more popular as you're exposed to it. So really, no one has ever proven the market for alternative football. So I think the attitude in the Canadian Football League, as it should be, is we will deal with the existential threat of alternative professional football in America when it proves to us it's sustainable. Because that approach has served the CFL pretty well. And believe me, there were people freaking out about the AAF 2 years ago, really worried. Thought that league, the people that were behind it and the ideas they had was a legitimate threat. And it was gone in 7 weeks. So I'm not saying it can't happen. And maybe Dwayne Johnson, especially with college football being shut down, if it becomes a league for guys to go from high school into professional football as sort of a substitute for major college football. That would be a different kind of thing. But until we really learn more about what the XFL's plan is and how they're going to execute it, and how their business model is going to be different than others, I think the Canadian Football League's attitude is, we got a lot of concerns on our radar right now. The XFL will just kind of, wait and see. And I think that's the right approach.
Now, I completely disagree with this, idea. But there's many people that have said maybe the CFL can become an affiliate league of the NFL or the XFL with the NFL. I think that's a terrible idea for the CFL because the CFL is unique. It's the Canadian Football League. It's Canada. And I think if you give it as an affiliate league to the NFL, you ruin that, and you'll probably lose a lot of fans, in my opinion. I think you will lose fans because you just lose the appeal of the league. It's our own league, and we're proud to have our own football league. That's especially in a country like Canada, not 35 million people, to have a well-running league, 7 teams. That's incredible. So, is there a potential at the XFL or the CFL or whatever other league that pops up to become an affiliate of the NFL? Because we've seen that. With the European NFL affiliate league in London and stuff. Is there, especially now with the pandemic, is it possible that one of these teams gets ties with the NFL, so the financial hit from the pandemic can be alleviated a bit because they'll be affiliated with such a big corporation like the NFL?
It's the biggest argument against it is really just that once you become a development league, you're
Yes.
The whole nature of your league changes, right? Your goal, every team's goal is not to win the Grey Cup, it's to develop players for somebody else, which is why nobody cares about, the wins and losses of AAA baseball teams because their goal is to develop players for somebody else.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You fundamentally change the nature of your league if you become, development league. Now, all that said, the Canadian Football League is going to need some kind of benefactor next season if they can't put fans in the stands, whether that's the government, whether that's, some other entity, or whether that's the NFL. Now, the NFL has its own challenges right now and may not be looking to take on other projects, but, it's certainly the economics. They could subsidize and support the CFL without blinking economically.
Sure.
So that's the sort of good side of that theory. The bad side of that theory is, if NFL owners are paying the bills, they're going to want to be able to call shots, right? And why are we doing this? Anybody anytime spends money says, well, why are we doing this? What are we getting out of it? And if you can't answer that, then I don't think they're going to want to do it. So, I'm not sure development league for the NFL ever makes sense anyway. They have a development league.
Exactly.
It's called college football. Mm-hmm. And the older guys get and the more football they play, the less appealing they become to the NFL because of the nature of football and the way it wears and tears your body and the way age comes into the equation. So
I think,
it's not something that I would think of as a very practical plan. Desperate times call for desperate measures, but I would be surprised if we saw something like that. And in general, other than the desperate measures, I would say, it's a very bad idea for the Canadian Football League.
I think if the Canadian Football League, and I'm just speculating, it's never going to happen in my opinion because that just ruins their marketing, that just ruins their model.
Right.
But if they became an affiliate league, then you're not going to fill, like in Saskatchewan, you're not going to fill 30,000 people. In Edmonton, you're not going to fill 45,000. No one wants, there's not going to be 45,000 people to fill an affiliate league. The CFL is unique in the way where it's a professional league with top players while not being the top league. It's one of the only leagues, maybe the KHL is similar, where it's a top league. It's its own top league, but it's not the top players, if that makes sense. But they still have great talent. An affiliate league, like you just said, the wins and losses wouldn't matter because your real team you'd be supporting would be like my team, the San Francisco 49ers, and their affiliate team would be, I don't know, the Ottawa Red Blacks, yeah, you're a Red Blacks fan, I guess, but you're hoping the players are good so they can play on your real team. And that ruins the business model for the CFL. Now, before we wrap things up and I let you tell people where they can follow you and everything, I want to ask you, as a podcaster, I got to ask you this question. If the CFL season were to play this season in 2020 in that bubble in Winnipeg, which was the proposal, who were the front runners to face off for the Grey Cup this season?
I think the Hamilton Tiger Cats were the favorite. When you look at the continuity on that roster, how good they were during the back half of last season, other than in the Grey Cup game, the fact that they have the depth at quarterback in both Dane Evans and Jeremiah Mazzoli. I mean, I thought Hamilton was really primed, to dominate the CFL this year. And you look at, they lost to Winnipeg, but Winnipeg had a lot of changes. They lost some guys to the NFL.
Yeah.
They
Paul LaPolice to the
Paul LaPolice, their offensive coordinator, gone. There were some significant depletions from both their coaching staff and their roster. And, as much as I like Zach Collaros, he played 4 games healthy last year. I think those questions about his ability to stay healthy haven't completely gone away. So, and they don't have much depth behind them. So I would have put Hamilton, into that category. I thought Saskatchewan had an opportunity to be very good this year. If Cody Fajardo could maintain the level of play he had. I mean, they weren't very far away from they were one play away from the Grey Cup last winter. So, those were the teams that kind of, jumped to mind to me as that might have had the best shot to get to the Grey Cup this year. And, it's funny, I think Hamilton and Winnipeg were 2 of the teams that pushed the hardest to play this year. And I'm sure part of the motivation was they want to keep the momentum from where they were, all the work they put into the offseason to have these teams primed, and Winnipeg's case trying to repeat, and Hamilton trying to, earn end the longest Grey Cup drought currently in the CFL. So we'll never know. I know there's people that play simulation games and stuff like that, but I would have liked the Ticats.
Well, as a Red Blacks fan, I got to ask you, Nick Arbuckle, do you think he was a great addition to the Red Blacks? That defense is already legit. Paul LaPolice is a great OC. I don't see why he'd be a bad head coach. The future of the Red Blacks, what's it looking like to you?
Well, I thought Marcel Desjardins did a very good job this offseason. I mean, and that was my opinion about the end of last year when people asking me, should he be fired? I said, well, look, I think when you had as much success as he'd had, if you have a bad season, you earn the opportunity to try to clean up the season that didn't go well, right? And the whole thing with Jamie Elizondo being gone last year, and
everything,
and their offensive coordinator, new quarterback, inexperienced quarterbacks, all that. I mean, the one thing about Nick Arbuckle is I think he started 9 games or thereabout, right? So it's a bet. He's not a proven commodity, but he performed very well. And anytime Dave Dickinson likes a quarterback, I like a quarterback. I would defer to Dave Dickinson. And so I think there's a reason that, they were willing to gamble a little more on a guy that came out of that organization than maybe somewhere else. And I know that Paul LaPolice, when he sat down and watched film, Paul LaPolice last season had his, he wasn't studying other quarterbacks, right? That's what defensive coordinators do. Yeah. But I know at the end of the season, when he sat down and watched film on Nick Arbuckle, the more he watched, the more he liked.
Yeah.
And I like what they did with their coaching staff, with Mike Benavides and Paul LaPolice, 2 TSN alumni guys, probably a little biased there, but I thought they built a really strong staff. And I thought there were some they had a good offseason. I don't think you were looking for, a 12-win season or something. But if they could have won 6 or 7 games, I think even that would have been seen as a marked improvement and been competitive in most of the rest. So I feel like the Red Blacks were on the right path, heading into this season.
And I think Red Blacks fans can't complain, considering in the first 6-7 years of our existence, we've been to the Grey Cup 3 times, won it once. Once against Calgary. And we lost twice, was it? Yeah, we lost once against Calgary.
Lost once to Calgary and lost to Edmonton.
And then won against Calgary and Toronto. Yeah. But David, it's been an absolute pleasure. This has been a fun conversation. I'm glad we got to talk about a little bit of CFL on the show. Why don't you tell the fans watching and listening to this where they can follow you and watch you?
My Twitter handle is @TSN Dave Naylor, @TSN Dave Naylor. My columns are on tsn.ca. And of course, probably not going to be that busy on SportsCenter talking CFL for the next few months, but ordinarily when there's a season, you can find me all over SportsCenter.
Well, David, you will certainly be back on the show as soon as possible, especially when the CFL returns. But thank you so much for joining. Stay safe, and we'll speak soon.
You too as well. Thanks so much.
All right, let's recap the first round of this year's 2020 Stanley Cup Playoffs, starting with Vegas versus the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, Vegas won the series 4-1. Chicago kept the games close, however. Corey Crawford played out of his mind, but the Golden Knights kept their well-oiled machine going. It was too strong for Chicago. They won the series in 5. They're going on to the next round to take on the Vancouver Canucks, and in the next episode, or tomorrow on SENS, we'll have a full breakdown of that series. Now, the next series, Tampa versus Columbus. This series ended in 5, but it really took 7 games to take down the Columbus Blue Jackets. That first game went to 5 overtimes. Game 4 or 5 went to overtime. Every single game was a 1-goal game. Corporcello was unreal. In Game 5, in Game 1, he made went to 5 overtimes, made 85 stops. But Tampa's offensive depth really overcame the defensive structure of John Tortorella's team. It was a fun series to watch, but Tampa was clearly the better team, and the magic out of Columbus ran out. I'm sure after that first game, they were dead, had no energy, and they weren't really able to recover after that. It was a close series, but Tampa did take it. But Columbus has a bright future, a lot of cap space with Werenski and Jones. They're going to be just fine. Now, Boston versus Carolina, very disappointing showing from Carolina here, where they came into the series with all the momentum, while Boston in the round robin was lackluster at best. So it was another close series. 4 of the 5 games were decided by 1 goal. But Carolina looked like they were behind quite a bit. A Svechnikov injury, very controversial. Jack Edwards had some stupid remarks about that, by the way. But Svechnikov got injured. That didn't help anything for the Canes, of course. And then, of course, Tuukka Rask, for very, very valid reasons, left the bubble to attend to a family matter. Some people were against that, and all I say to that is, how dare you? His family comes over anything. That's the way I believe. So he had a family emergency, and you take care of your family before anything else, because nothing's more important than your family. So I'm with Tuukka Rask 100,000% on this one. I respect it quite a bit. It's definitely not easy to leave your teammates during a Stanley Cup playoff in a bubble when you've been waiting months to get back into action, but when family calls, you answer. So Boston won this series in 5, 4-1. But really, they were flip-flopping between Reimer and Rask. Reimer allowed 4 goals in the last 12, 14 minutes to Boston, game 3 or 4, I believe, after Carolina was up 2-0, so it's sort of reminiscent to 2013, game 7, Boston-Toronto, where he allowed the 4 straight goals against as Toronto against Boston. So all around, not a great series for Carolina. At the end of the day, I expected a lot more from Carolina, but I'm sure the Svechnikov injury didn't help them whatsoever. Now, Colorado versus Arizona. Colorado in the first game outshot Arizona by like 45 shots. It was like 50-14, I believe, something crazy. The Colorado Avalanche won the series 4-1, so another 5-game win here. I didn't realize how many series went to 5 games. A lot of them actually went to 5 games. But, Darcy Kuemper was hung out to dry. He had to make huge stops. Colorado scored 7-1 twice, 2 times in a row. Kuemper was hung out to dry. He did all he could. In game 1, I think that shows all he could have done. He made stop here, stop there, stop here, stop there. But Colorado, my Cup champion favorite, the team that I think is going to win the Stanley Cup, overcame Arizona. And like I said in my preview for round 1, Arizona needed offense to combat the Colorado offense, and it never showed up. The one game they won, they shot 20 shots. They got lucky. So, Arizona, they don't got a GM. John Chaika was resigned or fired. But if I'm Arizona, you have the foundation of something great. You have a great goaltending. You have decent defense, and you have a young core. Just keep on building. And you can, hopefully, one day, there'll be a breakthrough in the desert, but good for Colorado. They're going on. That's expected. They won that series 4-1. Now, Philadelphia versus Montreal. The Flyers won this one 4-2 last night, the series. And this was a very interesting series. At a certain point, some people thought the Habs might upset again another top team. There's been so many bad blood between these two teams, and it was joy to watch for some of the time. And then the other time, it was just terrible. That cross-check to Brandon Gallagher's face, lost some teeth, broke a jaw. I'm not going to get into the hit because I haven't seen it enough. But what I will say is, it was some good old-fashioned hockey, which was fun to watch. But what wasn't fun to watch was to see all the injuries. So I hope Gallagher's okay and everything. But, at the end of the day, the Habs played a very good game. They had a very good series. And although they did get shut out in back-to-back games, they had a 5-3 win in Game 5 to stay alive. Game 6, they just fell short, but it was a valiant effort. And the Habs, they did lose out on the Lafreniere sweepstakes, even though they only had a 12.5% chance after beating Pittsburgh. I mean, if they didn't beat Pittsburgh. But like Ottawa fans can agree, the playoff experience is so valuable, It's so valuable, especially with guys like Kotkaniemi, Suzuki, these young guys who are going to learn from this experience, especially taking down the Penguins in 5 and then going to 6 against a tough Flyers team. So I think Montreal fans are probably like, damn, we missed out on Lafreniere, which would have been great. The jersey sales would have been rocketing with Lafreniere on the back of a Habs jersey. But if I'm a Montreal fan, I'm pretty optimistic about the future. Kotkaniemi looked legit in the series, and Suzuki looks to be a future star in my opinion. So I think the Habs could be just alright. They got some good draft capital and some good cap space, and Carey Price in net, and he seems to be changing back into Carey Price that we all know and love. So the Habs loses 1-6, but the Flyers move on. They're going on a cup run, I think, but the Habs, don't hang your heads. It was a solid season, one that many did not expect. Now, the New York Islanders versus the Washington Capitals. This one is an interesting one because I predicted the Capitals to win this one. I thought Braden Holtby would be able to turn it around, but I also mentioned that Barry Trotz and his system might stifle that, and it did. The Islanders won this series in 5, further ruining the Sanders' first-round draft pick. That one dropped to the 20s now. It used to be in the teens. If they would have lost the series, it would have stayed in the teens, but now it's dropped all the way down to the 20s. So I fully do expect the Ottawa Senators to trade that New York Islanders draft pick. However, the Islanders in this series look phenomenal. They won 3 straight against the Capitals. Squad to go up 3-0 in the series. The Caps fought in Game 4 to make it a 3-1 series, but they couldn't win 3 more in a row against a solid defensive team like the New York Islanders. Barzal went off. Pajot, of course, contributed. And the Islanders are moving on. And in the second round preview, which should be up, like I said, tomorrow on SENS, I am very interested to dive into that series because the Islanders are a team that are built for the playoffs. They got some scoring and they're defensively orientated. So I'm interested to see what Barry Trotz has up his sleeve next. Now the next series, I predicted this perfectly. The Stars won it in 6 games, 4-2 against Calgary. This series had a bit of everything. It was sort of 70s hockey with high-scoring thrillers, low-scoring typical playoff games, late goals to tie. I believe Alexiak scored like in the last 30 seconds against Cam Talbot after the Flames just scored to tie it. The Dallas Stars broke their hearts and scored again. A bunch of OT winners, drama, scraps, and a critical injury to a starter, Ben Bishop, who didn't start Game 1, and he didn't start a few other games. It was mostly Khudobin and net. And he led the Stars to a 4-2 series win, which shows Khudobin and the value of a really good backup is unprecedented in the NHL. We don't speak about it enough. You need to have a good backup to be a good team because all it takes is one injury, and all of a sudden, your backup's thrust into there and starting a bunch of games in the playoffs. So Khudobin, kudos to him for a great series. I'm interested to see why they started Talbot in the first place all the way back in Winnipeg instead of Riddick. Now, not crapping on Cam Talbot. He had a fantastic playoff, especially the play-in, and then in the series against Dallas, there's some up and down games, but I'm not going to blame him for the loss. I'm just surprised. I thought Riddick was their starter, and now that their season's done, I wonder if fans are saying the same thing, where Talbot had a fantastic series and, playoff, and, he definitely deserved the start most of those games. I'm just shocked that they turned to him instead of Riddick, and they, he didn't disappoint at least, but at the end of the day, interesting to see that decision for Calgary. And for Dallas, Khudobin now, he's going to probably have to face against Vegas or something, so that's going to be a tough one for them. Now let's move on to the last series. It is Vancouver versus the defending Stanley Cup champion St. Louis Blues, and the Vancouver Canucks won the series 4-2. There will be a new champion in 2020. Last night, the Canucks took down the Blues 6-2 in game number 6 to win the series 4-2. The young and skilled Canucks jumped to a quick and convincing 2-0 lead, but that lead evaporated very quickly after the Blues won 2 straight to tie it at 2. But the young Canucks continued to blossom with the young stars like Besser and Virtanen, and of course Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes, who willed Vancouver to a 3-2 series lead, and then with a 4-3 win in Game 5, and then they knocked off the defending champs last night to win it 6-2. Tyler Mott had 2 goals. Impressive from Vancouver. I gotta say, Markstrom really played well. Bennington, Blues fans, are you concerned? That was not a great series for him. He didn't have a great round robin, and then he had an even worse, playoff. Jake Allen had the man in the net, and he was a starter in a majority of the series games. So, I think they start Bennington next year, but is there a little bit of goalie controversy brewing? I don't think so, perhaps, but what I will say is it is a little concerning that Bennington did not play well for 8, 9 games, including round robin. So, if I'm a Blues fan, just look at the highlights from last year, watch those Stanley Cup highlights, and you'll be just fine. Don't worry. I'm a Sens fan. I can't relate. Got nothing to watch except Dion Phaneuf slapshot overtime winner highlights, and obviously Turris and Carlson doing magic in the playoffs. But regardless, if you're a Blues fan, just enjoy the memories of last year, and this pain will go away very soon. Now let's get to the NBA first round recap, which is not done, but we're going to recap the series and where they're at currently. So let's get to that right now. Welcome to In the Paint with your host, Brandon Plant. Now let's get to the first series of the first round of the 2020 NBA playoffs. It is your Toronto Raptors, we the North, versus the Brooklyn Nets. The Raptors are currently up 3-0 in this series as of Saturday at 11:30 in the morning. Fred VanVleet scored 76 points in his first three games. Last game, Game 3, he had a buzzer beater from half court in the end of the first half. And the Raptors have been dominating. I expect probably a sweep or in 5 games at least. The Nets without DeAndre Jordan, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. It's expected. LeVert's nice, but the Raptors are too much, and they're going to move on to the next round, I'm pretty sure. But knock on wood, of course. We'll see. But they are up 3-0 in the series. Now, the Jazz versus Nuggets. This one's interesting. The Jazz lead the series 2-1. Donovan Mitchell dropped 57 points in game number 1. Yes, not in 2 games. That was all in 1 game. Donovan Mitchell is an absolute animal. He's a beast. But the Jazz still lost game 1. So you heard that right. Not only did Donovan Mitchell will his team to a victory, they failed to get that victory. He had 57 points. Jazz destroyed Denver in game 3, winning by 37. That's why they lead the series 2-1. Now, I like Denver. I think, especially in such a tough Western Conference, they don't get enough attention, the Nuggets. They got some really nice players, and I am expecting definitely, a regroup and a rebound from the Nuggets because they are a good team. They got some really good players, and while I like the Jazz, I like Donovan Mitchell. I don't really like Rudy Gobert, but I like Donovan Mitchell. I think the Nuggets are better, and I think they probably will win the series, but they need to stop Mitchell because Donovan is going off. He's going off, and you got to stop that. Now, the 76ers versus the Boston Celtics. This series, I think I had it right on the wall. I said it last series. I don't like the Celtics. I also don't like the Sixers. So basically what I'm going to say here is, without Ben Simmons and the Sixers in general, I think they're overrated. Joel Embiid got a double-double in all 3 of the games, but Jason Tatum's been going off. 65 points in his first 2 games. The Celtics currently lead the series 3-0. And trust the process, Philadelphia. Well, are you still trusting it? You're about to get knocked out in the first round. Knock on wood, of course. Don't want to jinx anything, but you're down 3-0 in the series, and usually that you don't come back from that. So the Celtics, surprising in my opinion, dominating the series. I expect it to be a little closer. And Ty Beal, what's his name? What's that player from the Sixers? He does vlogs for the first round, not for the first round, but for the NBA bubble. So I think the one loss from the Sixers losing will be Tybal. I forget his name. Damn. He makes vlogs in the NBA bubble, and this could be a huge loss. I enjoyed watching his videos from inside the bubble. Be sure to check it out, of course. But that's the only loss here. The Celtics up 3-0 in the series. Now, Clippers versus Mavs. This one's interesting. Luka Doncic dropped 70 points in his first 2 games. Kawhi Leonard got a double-double in both of the games. But the series is tied at 1 apiece. Now, Mark Cuban's Mavericks have played very well, to be quite honest. I don't expect them to win this one, but the Clippers, in my opinion, while watching, looked a little disorientated. They didn't seem to be grouping as a team, and that's maybe just my hockey mind going off, but I think they win the series, but I think Kawhi Leonard's going to have to do a lot of carrying for them, maybe Paul George too. Now, the Magic versus Bucks, I remember seeing this, and I was like, how is that possible that the Magic won game 1? They won the first game of the series, but the Bucks won the second game, of course. Giannis Antetokounmpo is absolutely insane. And if you really look at it, firstly, do you think Giannis will ever come to Toronto? I don't think so personally, but we'll see. And today they're playing at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It's currently 11:40. That's why I'm checking my phone. The Magic and Bucks are playing at 1 o'clock today. So the series, as of this moment, is 1-1. But in a few hours, we'll find out who leads. Probably the Bucks, but we'll see. We'll knock on wood. We'll see. But Vucevic double leads the Magic to a game 1 stunner. Game 2, Giannis improved to be too much for the Magic in game 2 with 28 points and 20 rebounds. Yeah, 20 rebounds. The Greek freak is legitimately a freak. The Bucks should win this series. This should not be difficult for them. It's sort of like last year with the Raptors, where not only did they lose game 1 to the Magic, they won the next 4, so I expect the same for the Bucks, but we shall see, and I'll keep you updated in the next episode of the Best of 7 podcast. Now, the Heat versus Pacers. I love the Heat. Duncan Robinson went 7 for 8 from the 3-point line in game 2 for the win. The Heat lead the series 2-0. Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, Jimmy Butler. The Heat are so nice. I love those turquoise jerseys too. The Pacers are decent. Oladipo's nice, but I think the Heat are just better, and they're going to probably win the series, but we shall see. They're up 2-0. Now, the Thunder versus Rockets. The Rockets are up 2-0. It's too bad. I really like the Thunder. Challenges Alexander, the Canadian. You got CP3. They're an underdog team. Billy Donovan, Coach of the Year, potentially. Should have been Nick Nurse, but anyways. Billy Donovan, he's really coached his team well. And, they probably won't win the series against a team with James Harden, who's got 37 points and 11 rebounds to lead Houston to a Game 1 victory. But I do like the future of the Rockets. I think with all the draft capital they have, the sky is the limit for them. The Blazers versus Lakers. I sounded crazy when I said this, but I did say if there's any team out of like Memphis and the Suns and San Antonio and stuff that would upset the Lakers and have a good shot at doing it, it would be Portland, and they are tied in the series at 1-1. The Blazers and Lakers are tied, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Damian Lillard was clutch as always, scoring 34 points in Game 1 for the upset. Now, I told my friend Parker, who's watching this clearly, for sure, he always comments on the videos and podcast episodes, but I told him that I think the Blazers might upset the Lakers. Now, I think the Lakers will win this series, but I would not be shocked if Damian Lillard pulled off the upset. And it's tied at 1-1, and, LeBron had a triple-double in Game 1, but it wasn't enough. Damian Lillard is just a complete different, he's a game changer. Damian Lillard is a game changer. So, I'm not going to write off the Blazers. I really think they have a shot in the series. I think the Lakers win it. It's 1-1, so it's easy to say that, but I think the Lakers win it. But I do think the Portland Trailblazers have a very good shot at taking down the Lakers. I think out of all the teams that I mentioned previously, they're the best shot. And we've seen that already. Damian Lillard's playing very well. Anthony Davis, the Brow in Game 2, stepped up, helping the Lakers to tie it in the series with 31 points and 11 rebounds. But regardless, that's their series recap. The Blazers, once again, I really, really like the Blazers, and they're very fun to watch. So besides that, let's get to my little rant about Fernando Tatis Jr. and why his 3-0 Grand Slam should not be a big issue. So let's get to that. Alright, so I spoke about this previously in the episode, and I'm going to talk about it here. The MLB has an issue drawing in fans and drawing in attendance. Now, this season, the attendance issue is not an issue whatsoever because there's no fans except cutouts in MLB parks. But the issue with the MLB is they're not attracting a young demographic as much as they want to. They're losing fans left, right, and center. I'm a huge baseball fan, so it hurts to say it, but it's the truth. And Rob Manfred, in my opinion, is one of the worst commissioners in MLB history. And I'm not blaming him for all the losses MLB is seeing lately, but he certainly is not helping the situation. Now, the issue of Fernando Tatis Jr. hitting a grand slam on a 3-0 count against the Texas Rangers. By the way, the Texas Rangers, they love to complain. Look at Jose Bautista. They're the kings of the unwritten rule, apparently. But I think you should be encouraging those bat flips. You should be encouraging Fernando Tatis to hit that grand slam. Get those views in. Get the young demographic to be like, holy cow, that is really cool. What a grand slam. What a bomb. Get people excited about the game. Not all people, I'm sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Baseball traditionalists. I'm sorry that not everyone loves watching baseball for 5 hours. I'm sorry that, maybe we like to flip the bat. The young generation calls for entertainment. And baseball is the only sport that shuns entertainment. NFL, the no fun league, even them allows touchdown celebrations. NHL, go off. NBA, do what you want. MLB, don't swing at a 3-0 pitch and hit a grand slam or else you're going to get shunned. Like, in MLB, every other sport you can have fun, but in MLB you can't even do your job. Fernando Tatis Jr. hit a grand slam on the 3-0 count to improve his contract potentially, to improve his numbers, and he can make more money. He improves his job stat. He improves everything. So why would you be against, Fernando Tatis Jr. for hitting a grand slam? That's his job. He's a baseball player. Since when do we tell baseball players to not hit grand slams? Since when do we tell players in any professional sport to not do their jobs? That tells you that your unwritten rule is a load of horseshit, all right? And sorry for the young children listening and watching to this, but I got to keep it real with you. This is ridiculous. The fact that this unwritten rule for Fernando Tatis Jr. is about hitting a grand slam on a 3-0 count. Let me tell you something, Texas Rangers, who seem to complain about literally everything possible. Play baseball better. Don't allow that home run to Jose Bautista. Don't allow that home run, that grand slam to Fernando Tatis Jr. Pitch a better 3-0 count. Don't throw it right down the middle. Throw a better pitch. Walk him if you need to. The only person to blame is yourself for allowing that home run. Fernando Tatis Jr., he's just doing his job, man. And the worst part was Fernando's manager for the Padres even threw him under the bus. Like, what kind of leader? He's not a leader in my opinion, but what type of leader throws your own player under the bus? It's just a joke. I could just imagine the feeling of regret in the locker room for something you shouldn't have regret over. Fernando is definitely feeling some regret. He expressed that, I believe, in an apology. He apologized for something he shouldn't have to ever apologize for. And I think that this whole issue is the issue as a whole for baseball. Because, like I said before, and I'll say it again, they need entertainment. Not everyone, especially the young new generation, such as myself, not saying this is me particularly, but my generation, low attention spans, likes entertainment, immediate gratification. Baseball's not that all the time. It's a lot of slow play, pitching, strategy. And the NFL is similar, a lot of strategy and stuff, but at least they have entertainment. They have the halftime show. They got celebrations in the stands, not in the stands, but like in the end zone and stuff. And the MLB, you can't even hit a home run on a 3-0 count without getting ridiculed. So for the future of the MLB, for the sake of the future of the MLB, screw off unwritten baseball rules. Screw off being against entertainment, and let's get some entertainment. Let's get some younger demographics to watch baseball, and let's save this sport for the greater good of the league and the players itself. So at the end of the day, Fernando Tatis Jr., if you're watching this for some reason, I love the player, but I don't think he'll be watching the SENS talk. I do believe, though, maybe in the future when I build an empire, he will. But I think at the end of the day, for the MLB, they should be embracing this and not ridiculing it. Now let's end this episode for episode number 20. It's been a great one, so let's get to it. Before we end this episode, be sure to follow me on Twitter at @SensTalk_. And speaking of Twitter, where I post plenty of great content, be sure to check out the Best 7 podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at SENS Podcast. We tweet there plenty, we post there plenty, and lots of video clips and segments are posted there, so be sure to follow us there. As well, check us out on all 5 official streaming platforms of your favorite podcast. The Best 7 Podcast, that's on Spotify, SoundCloud, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, and of course here on YouTube. Click the big red button down there and make it gray and subscribe to us. Hit that bell and put on your notifications. Besides that, this has been a great episode. We have David William Naylor on the show, the CFL insider from TSN, to discuss the CFL. We broke down the first round of the 2020 Stanley Cup Playoffs, and we discussed the ongoing 2020 NBA playoffs for the first round. And we also discussed the stupidness of the unwritten rules of baseball. So besides that, thank you all for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Stay safe, and we'll see y'all very soon.